In the world of electric cars, a quiet war is playing out right now. Two giant Chinese companies are fighting over the heart of your future vehicle, and the numbers they're throwing around sound like science fiction. Geely just released figures that have stopped the entire industry in its tracks, an LFP battery that charges at 1,093 kilowatts. To put that in perspective, that's enough power to charge an electric car faster than you could fill a gas tank at your local station. But raw charging speed is only part of this story. For years, battery engineers believed in something called the impossible triangle, a rule stating you could never have everything you wanted from a battery at once. You always had to give something up. It was treated as close to an unbreakable law of physics and chemistry. Geely claims they've broken it. They say their new battery does what everyone assumed was impossible. And this isn't a prototype sitting in a lab somewhere. This is a real battery in a real car being driven on real roads right now. If you're enjoying videos like this, hit like. It takes real effort to put these together, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. What follows is a deep look at how they pulled this off, the intense cooling systems, chemistry that survives a bullet, claimed million-kilometer lifespan, and whether this actually beats BYD's famous Blade battery. To understand why this is such a big deal, you first need to understand the impossible triangle. Think about everything you want from a battery in your electric car. You want it to charge incredibly fast, so you're not wasting time at a charging station. You want it to last for years without losing its ability to hold energy. And you want it to be completely safe, even if something goes badly wrong. Those three demands form what battery engineers call the impossible triangle. For decades, the industry consensus was that you could only ever have two of the three at once, treated almost as certain as gravity. Here's why that trade-off exists. When you force a huge amount of electricity into a battery to charge it quickly, that flow generates heat. The faster you charge, the more heat you create. And heat is the enemy of battery chemistry, breaking down delicate internal materials over time to prioritize speed. And you're slowly eroding the battery's lifespan with every fast charge session. Works great today, but in 2 years it holds noticeably less energy. Flip it around. If your top priority is longevity, you have to baby the battery, charging slowly and gently to keep heat down and protect the internal chemistry. It might last for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, but you'll be waiting a long time at the charger every single time. Then there's safety. Making a battery as safe as possible often means adding thick protective layers between cells or heavier casing materials, which adds weight and eats into space that could otherwise store energy. You end up with a battery that's very unlikely to ever fail, but heavier and less efficient. Push hard on any one corner of the triangle and the other to suffer. Speed hurts lifespan. Lifespan limits speed. Safety adds weight and cuts efficiency. No matter how clever the engineering, you always had to pick two and accept losing the third.
But all that speed raises an obvious question. Charge a battery at these extreme rates day after day, and won't it fall apart within a few years? That brings us to the second corner of the triangle. A battery built to last 1,000,000 kilometers. Everyone knows fast charging usually wears a battery down over time. Use a fast charger on your phone daily, and the battery won't last as long since the chemicals inside degrade. Geely says their new battery can handle 4,500 full charge cycles, where a cycle means one full charge from empty and one full discharge back to empty. To make that number mean something concrete, say an average driver gets roughly 220 kilometers of real-world range per full cycle. Multiply 4,500 cycles by 220 kilometers, and you get exactly 990,000 kilometers. Geely rounds that up and calls it roughly 1,000,000 kilometers. That means you could drive this car for the rest of your life and likely never need to replace the battery pack. Most people don't even keep a car for 200,000 kilometers. The car will fall apart from old age long before the battery does. A 1,000,000-kilometer battery is a massive leap forward for EVs. But how do they keep the battery alive while pushing 1,093 kilowatts into it? Repeated ultra-fast charging causes real physical damage inside a battery, and Geely uses two specific mechanisms to fight it. The first deals with physical swelling that happens inside a battery during fast charging. When electricity rushes into a cell quickly, internal components physically expand, much like a sponge soaking up water and growing larger. If that expansion happens too aggressively, it creates tiny cracks in the internal structure. and once cracks form, the battery starts losing its ability to hold energy. To manage this, Geely built 3 technologies working together. First, a self-healing film called an SCE film that can actually seal microcracks on its own. If a tiny fracture appears as the battery expands, the film patches it before it grows. Second, a gel buffer layer around the internal components, essentially giving the sponge room to expand. The gel deforms and shifts as the battery swells, absorbing mechanical stress so the harder parts don't crack. Third, specially engineered binders that act like flexible glue, keeping internal materials bonded together even as they expand and contract thousands of times. Together, these 3 innovations let the battery swell and shrink 4,500 times without sustaining permanent damage. The second mechanism is called S+ active coating technology. Think of it as sunscreen for the battery. The electrodes inside a cell are extremely sensitive. When huge amounts of electricity pour in during ultra-fast charging, it triggers chemical reactions that gradually wear down the active materials. The S+ coating is a protective layer applied directly onto the electrodes, shielding them from that repeated chemical stress, the same way sunscreen blocks harmful rays from damaging your skin. Without it, the electrodes would degrade much faster under the punishing conditions of 12C charging. Thanks to these 2 mechanisms working together, the Golden Brick can endure the most aggressive charging routine imaginable and come out the other side with its health intact. Like designing a running shoe you could use for a marathon every single day for years without the sole ever wearing out. So we've checked off speed and lifespan. What about the third most important corner? What happens if this battery gets into a bad crash? China's safety standards are now stricter than anywhere else in the world. And Geely didn't just meet the new bar, they went far beyond it, testing their battery in ways that sound almost absurd. The third corner of the triangle is absolute safety, and this is where Geely pushes furthest past what anyone expected. Since 2024, Geely has run 48 separate test programs, logging more than 48,000 hours, putting batteries through hell, destroying 6,967 samples in the process, sacrificing individual cells and full battery packs to find the true limits. Of those test protocols, 23 exceed what the new Chinese standard requires, and 12 were tests Geely invented internally. Nobody asked them to run these. They chose to, in order to uncover every possible failure mode before it could ever happen on a real road with real people inside. The reasoning behind this obsessive testing traces back to a principle known as Heinrich's Law, originally developed from decades of workplace accident studies. It reveals a consistent pattern. For every 1 catastrophic event, there are roughly 29 smaller incidents and 300 near misses that preceded it. The takeaway is simple but powerful: hunt down and fix the 300 near misses, and the minor incidents never happen. If the minor incidents never happen, neither does the catastrophe. Geely applies that exact logic to batteries, probing for tiny weaknesses under extreme lab conditions, so those weaknesses never turn into roadside emergencies. They'd rather destroy thousands of batteries in testing than have one fail in a customer's driveway. Some of these tests sound more like a dare than a quality check. Take the crush test. They drive a 36-ton tank directly over a fully assembled battery pack, applying 1.8 times the weight the Chinese national standard requires. Any normal battery would buckle. The Golden Brick holds together with no structural failure. Then there's the bullet test. Geely fires a 5.56 millimeters round, the exact caliber used in military assault rifles, directly into a fully charged cell at 920 meters per second, passing clean through the battery. Despite being pierced, cell voltage stays above 3.2 volts and nothing catches fire. The battery essentially takes a bullet and keeps working. And then there's the needle test. Arguably the most brutal of all, pushing 5mm steel needles into a fully charged cell from multiple angles simultaneously. Designed to simulate the worst possible internal short circuit. After the needles go in, they watch the battery for a full hour. No smoke, no flames, no fire, no explosion. It just sits there, stable and quiet, as if nothing happened. Geely's commitment to safety extends beyond their own products, too. They actually helped write the new underbody impact test that became part of the Chinese national standard, and they released 12 patents related to battery floor safety to the entire industry, including their direct competitors. Deciding that raising the safety floor for everyone mattered more than hoarding the advantage. Remember the new law requiring 0 flames for 2 hours after thermal runaway begins? Geely designed the golden brick so that if one cell experiences a thermal event, the heat stays completely contained. The aerospace-grade barriers and gel layers trap the energy inside the affected cell, and neighboring cells don't even register that anything's gone wrong next door. The fire never spreads because the fire never starts. That completes the third corner of the triangle: speed, lifespan, and safety, all checked off at once. But having an incredible battery is only half the battle. The other Chinese giant, BYD, has a famous battery of its own. Does Geely really come out on top? The answer might surprise you. Now that we've seen how Geely tackled the impossible triangle, the big question is whether this new battery actually beats BYD's celebrated Blade battery. To answer that honestly, you need to look at the comparison from multiple angles. Start with infrastructure, since that's where the gap is most striking. An incredible battery is worthless without a charger powerful enough to use it. BYD has spent years building a proprietary flash charging network already up and running, even rolling out massive 1.5 megawatt chargers across Europe this year. BYD controls the entire experience car, charger, and station. So when you pull up to a BYD station, you know it'll work, because BYD built the whole system. Geely sits in a very different position. Their megawatt charging relies on a partner called Ohan Energy, still in an early pilot phase, with stations currently limited to a handful of cities, mainly Hangzhou, Beijing, and Shenzhen. Geely doesn't yet have the nationwide coverage that would let any driver anywhere fully exploit that 1,093 kilowatt capability to close the gap. Geely signed a deal with NIO, letting their drivers tap into NIO's extensive charging network across China. A smart workaround, but relying on someone else's network isn't the same as owning your own. Now look at the raw power numbers. BYD's system can reach a peak of 1,500 kilowatts, higher than Geely's 1,093. On paper, comparing just the biggest number each company can hit on a test bench, BYD wins. But peak power on a spec sheet isn't what matters to a real driver on a real highway. What matters is how quickly you can go from a low battery to enough range to reach your destination. And on that practical measure, Geely actually pulls ahead. The time it takes the golden brick to charge from 10 to 70%, then up to 97%, beats what BYD's battery achieves. Geely gets you back on the road sooner, even with a lower theoretical peak. So the answer to whether Geely beats BYD isn't a simple yes or no. Purely in terms of laboratory innovation on a specific battery cell, Geely pulled off something remarkable, checking all 3 corners of the impossible triangle simultaneously, delivering speed, longevity, and safety in a single LFP battery, something the entire industry believed was impossible. That's a genuine engineering breakthrough. But BYD remains the undisputed leader in mass production and real-world infrastructure. Having the best battery in the world means little if you can't plug it in wherever you go. BYD's charging network is mature, reliable, and expanding fast, and for a driver, crossing China or Europe on a road trip, that matters enormously. BYD gives you the peace of mind that a charger will be there when you need it. This whole situation raises a genuinely interesting question about the future. If conventional LFP chemistry can already deliver this level of performance across speed, lifespan, and safety, why is the industry still pouring billions into solid-state battery research? The original promise of solid-state was that it would finally solve all 3 problems at once. But Geely seems to have done exactly that. With chemistry that's been around for years, maybe those billions chasing solid-state would be better spent building out charging infrastructure the way BYD is right now. For now, Geely has shown that the impossible triangle might not be so impossible after all. They pushed LFP chemistry further than anyone thought it could go, and the rivalry between Geely and BYD is only just getting started. Fantastic news for anyone who drives an electric car. If you enjoyed this deep dive into battery technology and want more like it, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. It takes real effort to break down complex topics like this, and your support genuinely helps the channel grow. Related videos are on screen now if you want to keep learning about the wild world of electric cars. So here's a final question for you. If you were buying a new electric car tomorrow, would you go for one with Geely's ultra-fast charging battery or one with BYD's massive, reliable charging network? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.